A merchant tossed a date pit. A genie sentenced him to death. The genie said that tiny stone had struck his unseen son and killed him. The merchant had never meant to harm anyone, but the blade was already above his neck. In that empty desert, innocence meant nothing unless he could persuade grief itself to show mercy. The merchant had been riding home across a scorching desert. At a spring beneath a walnut tree, he tied his horse, ate bread and dates, and flicked the pits into the dust. Then the air darkened. An enormous ifrit stepped from a pillar of smoke, ember-eyed and carrying a curved sword. One pit, he said, had struck his unseen son and killed him. The merchant stared at the harmless-looking stone. He had heard no cry and seen no one fall. He pleaded that no one should die for an accident. The ifrit answered that his son was still dead. Blood demanded blood. Thrown to the ground, the merchant asked for one mercy. "Give me a year," he begged, "to pay my debts, return what others had entrusted to me, divide my estate, and say farewell to my family. Then I will come back alone and place my life in your hands." The genie asked what could make a condemned man return when no guard would follow him. The merchant offered only his sacred oath. After a long silence, the genie accepted it, warned him not to break it, and vanished. The merchant went home and put every account in order. He paid every debt, returned every pledge, wrote his final wishes, and told his family the truth. Each passing month carried him closer to the waiting sword. As the final day approached, his children clung to him, and his relatives begged him to flee. But the merchant said a life bought with a broken oath would no longer be his own. On the appointed morning, he washed, took the cloth meant for his burial, embraced those he loved, and crossed the desert. He could have fled to any kingdom. Instead, on the first day of the new year, he sat beneath the walnut tree and waited. An old traveler arrived, leading a gazelle by a chain. Hearing why the merchant was there, he was astonished that any man would keep such a promise and refused to leave him alone. A second old man joined them with 2 black dogs, then a third with a dappled mule. Each heard the merchant's account and chose to stay despite knowing the place belonged to the jinn. Soon the horizon twisted into smoke and sparks. The genie emerged, seized the merchant, and raised his sword. The strangers cried out. Then the first old man stepped between the blade and the condemned man and offered a bargain no genie could resist. A story. If my tale is stranger than this merchant's crime, spare 1/3 of his life. The genie agreed. The old man revealed that the gazelle was once his jealous wife, a sorceress who had transformed his son into a calf and the boy's mother into a cow. She claimed the mother was dead and the son had vanished, then demanded that her husband sacrifice the enchanted cow. He obeyed without knowing she was the mother of his child. But when the calf was brought forward, it broke its rope, fell at his feet, and wept with such human sorrow that he dropped the knife. The herdsman's daughter recognized the spell, restored his son, and transformed the guilty wife into the gazelle. The genie studied the animal and forgave the first third. The second man pointed to his dogs. They had once been his elder brothers. The brothers lost their inheritances on reckless journeys, and twice the younger man welcomed them home and restored their fortunes. At last, they persuaded him to join another voyage. His goods earned 10 times their value, and on the return journey, he married a poor woman he met beside the sea. Envy consumed his brothers. While the couple slept aboard ship, they threw them into the dark water. The wife revealed herself as one of the jinn. She carried her husband safely to land and wanted to kill his attackers, but he begged for their lives. So she changed them into black dogs for 10 years. Even after their betrayal, he was traveling to seek their release. The genie marveled and surrendered the second third. The last old man laid a hand on his dappled mule. She had once been his wife. Returning after a year away, he found her with another man. Before he could speak, she whispered over a cup of water and threw it across his face. His hands became paws, his voice became a bark, and she drove him from his own house as a dog. He survived on scraps until a butcher took him home. The butcher's daughter saw through the spell, restored his human form, and gave him enchanted water of his own. He returned while his wife slept and named the shape she would wear. She became the mule. Before the genie, the animal lowered her head and nodded, confirming every word. The genie lowered his sword. 3 impossible stories had purchased 3 parts of one innocent life, and even an ifrit was bound by a bargain freely made. He released the merchant, stepped into a rising column of dust, and disappeared across the sand. The merchant had survived not through strength, wealth, or escape, but because he kept his word long enough for strangers to witness it. He embraced the old men and thanked them for risking the genie's anger for someone they had met only that day. Then the travelers parted, and the merchant crossed the desert toward the family he never expected to see again. A careless act brought the merchant to death, But keeping an impossible promise brought three strangers to his side. In this tale, a man's word did not merely measure his honor, it created the chance for mercy. Subscribe to Nightfall Tales for another story carried through the dark.